Welcome back to Developer's Diary. I'm Global War 36 enthusiast, and joining me again today is the lead designer for Global War 36, Morten Monk. Welcome back, Morten.
Hi, Peter.
Today we're going to be discussing strategic objectives. On the first one, we talked about the most important game mechanic in port, but now we're talking about what is the key to every game, the victory conditions. So my first question is, how did you uh, go from version 3.18 victory points per faction down to just 10? Well, how did that happen?
Perhaps I should begin with from going from V2 to V3. One of the things that I didn't touch was actually the victory conditions. So that was one of the things that I wanted to do a complete redesign of when we went to V4. Um, so going from 18 to 10 is actually for you can say that it's for simplicity, but also for gameplay. Whenever I talk to players for back on V3, they were more or less they didn't they didn't have the victory objectives in their mind because they couldn't remember all of them anyway. So it was something that people, well, now the game is over, so let's count them all up and see where we are. And most people played um, for what's commonly called global dominance. So you just played to grab as much of the world as you could, and then 45 comes along, and then you start counting. Um, so I wanted to change that mentality, but there were also some things that um, no, I have a goal as a designer of I don't want to force people into doing something. If you want to invade the Easter Islands, go for it, my friend. Um, so, but I still want to motivate players into playing World War II. So the best place for me to actually do that is via these victory conditions. Um, and whenever I evaluate a hack or a cool move or whatever it's called, I immediately analyze, is this a winning strategy? If it's not a winning strategy, that means it's a losing strategy. And then I don't have to do anything about it. So then the players are free to do whatever they want. I remember back in the days, there was a discussion, what if Japan took the whole Navy and moved it into the Mediterranean? Should Great Britain, should they not have a peacetime income increase? It's stupid that they don't get that.
No,
And I
no.
was like, well, perhaps, but Japan will lose if they do this. So feel free to throw the game out the window. So these victory objectives, these conditions are very important. So I spent a lot of time thinking about this, and then we did a lot of testing, and we also did a lot of going back and forth and fine tuned each piece of this. And it's actually one of the things that I think is very it's very well tested, and everyone I talk to is actually very eager to start using this compared to the old system. So
Yeah, I think that rarity determines value, and when you had 18 per faction, the individual value of any one particular victory condition, I guess that was victory objective, it was called in V3 lingo, was not very high, which is why people played for global dominance. But now you've done something really that's a stroke of genius, which was to take your Spanish Civil War bonus and apply that to all the strategic objectives to really increase their importance. So even though there's fewer in number, the value for achieving one has gone up. How did you get that idea to do bonuses with every strategic objective?
Well, people, they love to get free stuff, right? So that's just basic human behavior, right?
Mm.
But anyway, the bonus actually serves a different purpose. Um, when I looked at how other games incorporated their victory conditions, um, I often saw that, well, people waited until the last couple of rounds and then they went after the conditions. Um, Either because, well, now I took the condition, the next turn the game ends, so you don't have time to counter it or take it back. Um, so people were gaming the system, so to speak, and I didn't like that. So the bonus system actually helps players to go after the objectives sooner rather than later, because now they get some units, they get some abilities, they get something that is useful to their nation to continue fighting the war. So now we turned it upside down. You want to get the objectives as soon as possible. And that's actually, yeah, the bonus system works quite well. We did a lot of tweaking so that each bonus actually is valuable to that nation at that point of time in the game that it's probably going to get the objective. And of course, also with a bit of historical accuracy as well. So
It's interesting because now when you're formulating your overall game plan, you're going to take into account what strategic objectives might I achieve early, which will then help me achieve other strategic objectives. So that's really enriched the game. And it's not just about where you'll be at the end, it's what kind of milestones you'll hit along the way. Really, really neat. Look, one other thing that before we get into the individual strategic objectives, one other thing I wanted to just mention was that the whole system really seems to rely heavily on the variable turn ending. That if you knew you were going to end at 18, this system would fall apart. There'd be so much gaminess. Did you guys find that out, or were you already ride or die for variable turn ending? You were just like, it's definitely going to be variable turn ending.
if you don't play for world dominance, I don't think you can play a game without a variable ending, to be honest. Like you said, there is simply too much gaming going on. And the variable ending actually totally eliminates that. We tried a lot of different ways of implementing these objectives. Um, and most of them actually had the same weakness where, well, if you take, let's say it's Calcutta as an example. If I'm 1 point away from winning, and I'm Japan, why should I not sacrifice my entire air force taking Calcutta? I just need one dude alive, right?
Right.
So I sacrifice everything for 1 point because I need 1 point, and we're gonna end soon, right? Um, so we need the variable ending to punish that type of behavior, because the Japanese player, I'm not sure we're gonna end the next turn. So perhaps it's stupid to sacrifice 15 aircraft for this point, and that opens up a whole new dynamic, a whole new element to the game actually.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just about looking at the points. It's also looking about, um, if you look at the when is the axis most likely to win. Well, if we have an early game ending, axis has an advantage here, because the number of turns that the Americans have been in the war is less. So it's actually also, it brings a lot of excitement because perhaps and I've done that myself. I think the last two playtests we had, I was the Axis, and I won by in 44 July 44 with incredibly good dice.
Right.
And had the game progressed, I would have been crushed. So the balance of which alliance is winning is also depending on this variable ending. Because if we go into 46, it's going to be tough playing Germany.
Right. Right.
Everything else being equal, of course. Yeah. So it actually the variable ending eliminates a lot of gaminess, brings a lot of excitement, and yeah, and overall it's just I think it's an awesome concept.
Agreed. I couldn't see playing without it. One other thing before we start on the individual strategic objectives that I really appreciated that you did was you eliminated the penalty for loss of home country territory. You work so hard to achieve a strategic objective, and then someone just paratroops or paradrops a soldier. If you're Russia, I mean, you've got endless amounts of territory, and if America had an island, with a paratrooper in range, you could lose a point for that. I really didn't like that. It was very painful to be Russia because of that. So I'm glad you got rid of that particular rule.
Yeah, it's an old rule from the earlier days, and I mean it makes sense that if you lose high valuable home country, you're likely not going to win. But the problem was, like you said, it's too easy to manipulate. Um, and when we went from 18 to 10 points, as the points, like you mentioned, it's much more valuable now.
Mm-hmm.
We simply can't have that Russia can lose 3 or 4 points because then I mean, I don't want to play Russia in that game.
Exactly. Exactly.
And one of the other advantages of going from 18 to 10 is that each alliance actually, whenever they lose a point, their options are a bit reduced. So let's say that Russia, they lose in Spain. That's not uncommon. Well, they better secure Finland then,
Right.
because if they don't secure Finland, then it's really tough because now they really need to win in China and on the Eastern Front to be able to have a fair chance of winning. So every time, and as you progresses through the game over time, in the beginning you have all the options in the world,
Right.
especially for the access players and somewhat also for commenting. But as the game progresses, you can actually see, I lost Africa there, damn.
Mm-hmm.
So now 1 point down. So now my remaining points. I mean, and people actually, I've seen that people actually switch strategies mid-game to make up for these points that they lost due to bad luck or poor strategy or whatever. So it's actually, I think 10 points is the right amount. And then of course you have the cities as well. Yeah.
I really love that because when you're playing some other World War II games, it is about the global dominance, and that takes away the importance of particular battles, like if Stalingrad falls. Everyone knows that in World War II that was huge, huge determining battle. But if you're playing a type of game that Russia only falls if Moscow falls, then Stalingrad, it's important and you don't want to lose it, but it's not as important as it might be in this particular game where it's the difference between a victory point or not,
Yeah.
or maybe two for Germany, so that makes it really agonizing, and the drama goes up, just like last time you were talking about the anti-aircraft drama when you were talking with a board gaming pro. You're creating drama, little bits, little sections of drama, rather than just what the old version 3, which is one giant naval battle determines all.
Yeah.
This is a lot of little areas where there'll be tremendous excitement. So that's very interesting. Okay.
And actually, you can say that, well, it's one of the success criteria for a World War II board game is how smelly is the war room
Mm.
after a whole day. Because if it's just everyone is sweating due to the excitement, and I mean it's a hell of a
Yeah, that's good.
going in that war room,
Right.
and that's what we want. We want the excitement and people to sweat, and yeah.
Right.
And every time we lose speed in the game, your pulse goes down and you stop sweating. So we want to keep
Mm-hmm.
the pulse up, and yeah,
You're kind of designing a roller coaster. So,
yeah, definitely, definitely.
okay, so let's talk about the individual strategic objectives. We'll start with Germany, and the first one for Germany is the Spanish Civil War. So, uh, the pros, the upside of prevailing in the Spanish Civil War is, of course, the victory point, but also the bonus of that Blue Legion that you get a free infantry every turn, and that can really add up. Another pro is that, yeah, you'll get to keep doing recruitment roles with Spain now, which is new in version 4. In version 3, recruitment would end after the Spanish Civil War was won. But because you're doing recruitment roles and you still have the ability to move your units around as a controlled miner, uh, you you can prepare for the very likely scenario that the Allies are going to invade Spain. Is that what usually happens in version 4? I'm imagining a lot of times the Allies go in to
Yeah,
try to take that back.
it's one of the excitements we have is do you go in France or Spain first, and then you
Mm-hmm.
can of course move up to France. And so I mean the Spanish Civil War actually it belongs in the game. So to make it as interesting as possible, we made these tweaks, like the ones you mentioned, but also that you're actually able to take it away. So all victory points, or well, almost all of them, you're able to take them away again. So that also brings late game excitement.
Yeah, that
Uh,
the only con to the Spanish Civil War is how difficult for Germany having four points that they can get, four strategic objective points that they can get. That's probably the one of the hardest ones for them to hold on to if the Allies decide they want to take Spain. Is that right? Or have you seen games where Germany's been able to defend Spain?
yeah, they can defend for
Oh,
sure. The
okay.
problem with Spain for let's say the US is that it's a long ass way home from home and their
Mm-hmm.
factories. So they can drop in, of course, and be real cocky. But Germany's factories are almost next door, and they can rail, so they are actually able to reinforce very quickly.
Oh, that's good to know. This will
Uh,
be
so
exciting to see.
so so it's actually also, but it's mountain terrain, so there's a lot of how do you go about doing this? But the long supply lines for the US is definitely an issue here. So there's no easy win, but for sure, Germany they want to win in Spain.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of their easier points to get. And of course, there are different strategies for winning in Spain. Let's perhaps talk about them in another video. But perhaps one thing we should touch upon here is when we chose the objectives for example, Germany. We looked at, well, for Germany, if we have 10 points in total and we have the Axis powers, it would be natural to do four for Germany, four for Japan, and two for Italy.
Right.
So let's look at
Let me take
Germany.
a guess. You said 2 points for the Eastern Front, 1 point for the Western Front, and 1 point for the Med.
Well, that's actually, yeah, something like that. So we have 4 points for Germany. I've seen a lot of games where Russia and Germany, they suddenly fall in love with each other, and
Right.
let's
Right.
just not go to
Make an
war.
alliance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and of course, that's not World War II, and it's not going to be fun for the Allied player, especially not the British one. So again, we looked at, well, historically, Germany wanted Lebensraum. That was that was their main objective. Um, so that's the Russia side. So yeah, let's give that 2 points. And then if we look at, we also want Spain in the war. But if we don't do a victory point for Spain, why bother with Spain? No one would do anything about Spain as Germany.
Hmm.
So that's also a point. And then we have 1 point left. Um, so 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 that went to the western side of Europe, um, and we can talk about that after. So that's how we, and there are no more points for Germany. Um, so that's how we did it. We actually, well, we want players to spread out, and
Hmm.
that's especially obvious for the Japanese ones. So there you can go in. We want players to go in different directions on the map, still being historical context.
Yeah, I saw you do that with the various countries, especially Russia. It's very noticeable in Russia or Germany how you're pushing them in every direction. So there was a lot of thoughtfulness also between how you set up many of the strategic objectives to directly oppose another country's strategic objective. So that
Yeah.
there's incentive for the two forces to run at each other. Okay, you brought up Lebensraum. Let's bring that one up. How badly did I massacre that Lebensraum? Is that right? Or how?
I'm not German, but I think that sounded
Okay, okay,
good to
close
me.
enough.
Yeah.
So that one is hugely important. First of all, the bonus is tremendous that you get two free factories in two of the three cities, um, because especially if you use synergy of say improved factories, um, you've got a fighting chance to hold on to what you took and dig in. The moment Stalingrad falls, it might be hard to take it back. Is it now that Russia only has three cities, or do
So
they?
they have more.
Okay.
So Germany needs to do go the northern route or the southern route or directly from Moscow. So
Mm-hmm.
you have options.
Okay.
Um, the map is a bit different in Russia compared to V3, so it's actually much harder for both Germany and Russia to go about doing Barbarossa. Um, but it's actually it is the most important side of the map for Germany.
Mm-hmm.
For
That's what I said when I was prioritizing the strategic objectives. This seems like the one you've just gotta go for because it's potentially game winning. If you can do well enough in Russia that they're back on their heels, I think you could be in a position to carry the at least for Germany, carry the weight of the team.
yeah.
So okay, so let's talk about the Fortress Europe. I really like that this is the kind of strategic objective where you're going to do it the earlier is the better because it's all about the bonus and how many turns you're going to get a free uh, item. And if there's an invasion and you're able to push them back, you can continue laying things down because the maintaining the victory point is tough for you because it's the end of the turn and Britain and America go after you and there's seven places you've got to defend. But you can take it for just a turn, build something, and then lose it, take it again, build something. So it's a really neat strategic objective that you might not be able to get the victory point for, but you can definitely get value for holding it down. I like that one.
And that's actually the whole idea with that one. We really wanted the Atlantic Wall part of the game. It was a big part of the Western Front. But the only problem is that it's a crappy strategy to build the Atlantic Wall for
Mm-hmm.
Germany. Um, and we saw in V3 that, well, people tended to consolidate in Paris and then do counterattacks and leaving the coastal lines empty. Um, but like, but so we introduced this objective here, and then, like you say, it gives pieces of the wall for free. So now people are motivated to actually, perhaps it's better to stay in Paris, but I want the bonus. So
Right.
perhaps it's a good idea to have something on the coast. Um, so again, we did a lot of, whenever there was something that is usually done, let's, do we want this or do you want to shake it up? And oftentimes we said, no, let's shake it up. We want more, by more options, more good options for players. Um, and the this dynamic also actually is interesting, because if you look at the Netherlands, Germany and Japan has to really coordinate when do we attack, because Germany wants it early.
Mm-hmm.
Japan, not so early,
Ah,
perhaps.
right.
So there's a bit of conflict here in the Axis alliance about when do we go for the Netherlands.
Oh, that's fascinating. I
So
hadn't thought about that because Germany wants to start building the wall, and
yeah,
Japan's like, "Hey, can you just postpone one more turn, one more turn?" Oh, that
yeah.
sounds fun. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
So and Denmark was also left neutral in most games, and that is also here. So it's, and like you said, I don't expect any. I mean, if Germany has this point at the end of the game, the allied player has been performing poorly. Let's just be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's not a point that I'm. It's not there for the victory points. It's more for the, let's bring the Atlantic Wall in a way
Mm-hmm.
that it's fun and
Right.
makes sense, and breaks up the what's commonly done in France. So now you actually have three ways as a German player how to defend Europe. One, you consolidate in Paris and Western Germany, and then do counterattacks. That's a good option. The second one is going for the coastline, fortifying it, get the pieces. Uh, and the third one is, let's take the defense to the Atlantic Ocean, have a lot
Mm.
of subs, and as soon as something comes up, we will take it out with the naval and support with Luftwaffe. So now you have three options of defending your western flank as Germany.
Oh, that sounds
Um,
great. I really like that a lot of the changes involve moving away from a big battle, say one massive battle for Paris, to perhaps little battles, skirmishes, and seeing material gradually winnowed down little by little. So that's a good change too. All right, let's switch over to Japan and talk a little bit about how the Pacific buffer zone strategic objective for Japan, in a way, is similar to the Atlantic Wall for Germany. It's probably not going to be held for the victory point at the end, but it can be held turn by turn to try to build up perhaps one, put all your eggs in one basket. Is someone who's never played, what I'm thinking is, I every time I capture it, I choose one of those four islands, and I focus on it, because America, in order for them to achieve their objective for maintaining all or restoring all their possessions that they held at the beginning of the game, they're going to have to take back Wake. They're going to have to take back Midway. So if you have those little islands off the coast of Alaska, wherever you pick as Japan, you might try to make kind of a hornet's nest that might be hard to break down. Is that how it plays out, or do people smooth it out and cover everywhere, or what happens in most games?
I think that as Japan, you will probably have three overall strategies that you would pick one. Say, I'm going to use this one. So the number one is going for the Pacific. You will then do Pearl Harbor, take away, I mean, eliminate the U.S. fleet. And that in itself is a poor strategy if there were no victory points available. to go along with, because now your fleet is in the middle of the Pacific, and if all your victory points are on the mainland, then that no one will do it anyway. So we had to move some victory points out in the Pacific to go along with Pearl Harbor.
Mm.
So now we actually have 2 points available for Japan if they go after the Americans. So one is the buffer zone, where they get the islands, and they will be tough to hold for sure. But after Pearl Harbor, if they do a good job, they will also have the Kido Butai, which is now they can build more capital ships for cheaper. And so that's an interesting Japanese strategy, because if the U.S. doesn't have a fleet in the Pacific, yeah, it's it's actually a real option for
Yeah,
Japan.
because there's a feedback loop where once you do have keto butai, then you're if especially if you improved construction, now you've got dramatically reduced costs, so you have a chance to try to stay ahead, or at least slow the time till America gets to double.
Yeah.
Prevent them from getting their strategic objective. One other thing I want to mention is how cool it is to have the names of these strategic objectives be historical, like the Atlantic Wall or Kido Butai, so that people are like, "Oh, what is Kido Butai?" Maybe they do a little wiki and they're like, "Oh, that was the Japanese, main strike force," and learn about that. So I thought that was really neat.
Hey, whenever we can squeeze in a bit of historical accuracy, it's great. So
I interrupted you, Morten. You were saying that there are three major paths that Japan can follow, and you laid out the first one, which was kind of the America, Pearl Harbor, Kido Butai. What's the second path?
um, the second pass is could be China, going all out on China, combined with Russia. And there is not much winning points there. There's one for the resources, Manchukuo, but you also need some of the islands. But you get a lot of IPP from doing that. We changed the Japanese wartime bonus income for the Chinese land zones, so they also get them while at peace with major powers. So they actually get the bonus for China early. But that is the second uh, Japanese strategy. So then mid to late game, the Japanese will have to switch. They could do a third. The third strategy was is going south,
Hmm.
to get the Dutch East Indies and the Malaya. And there's a victory point there as well, Asia for Asians.
What
So
used to be called Southeast Asia, right?
yeah,
Yeah, Asia for Asian was Asia for Asians was a propaganda campaign that the Japanese had. They were like, we're liberating you from the imperial colonialists, So, uh,
it sounds like
very
something that
interesting.
is happening today in Ukraine, actually. So
It
yeah,
does exactly right.
yeah.
So I really like that. I think that with that particular objective, where if you go with the Dutch East Indies and you try to take Southeast Asia, you have a better chance of perhaps holding on to that victory point till the end. Is that accurate or no? Because one path is naval supremacy, but you're probably not going to be able to hold on to the victory point. Um, I mean, even Kido Butai, I don't see how if America decides it's going to go a naval buildup, you are not going to be able to maintain naval supremacy, right? So, but on the other hand, if you go Southeast Asia, yes, geographically you're in a better position, and the Americans have to travel a lot further distance, but you don't have naval supremacy, so very
Well,
difficult.
it's interesting because if a big American fleet shows up, Japan is having a tough day at the office.
Right.
Um, but the way that the Allied victory points are, it's very difficult for the US player to just focus on Japan. So we actually use the allied victory points to say, wait a minute, US player, perhaps it's not a winning strategy to take out Tokyo, because what about Europe, Paris? Your
Mm.
friends in Europe need you to support you in that campaign. So we're actually seeing now that the US is more or less forced to split up and build in both theaters. And that actually gives Japan a winning chance, because if they're only spending 30 or 40 IPPs, the US that is, on ships in the Pacific, Japan can actually keep up unless they're being pressed by
Mm.
FEC or China or Russia.
Boy,
So
I can see now that I was coming at that with V3 mentality, and part of that stems from the home country. But when America could land on Japan and take away home country territory, and blockade them fairly easily, that was a winning strategy, and
yeah,
you could go all out. So that's not the way it plays out in V4, where people might go all American output for the early part of the game against Japan. That doesn't happen in V4,
well,
or it's
it
not a
could.
winning strategy.
But then the Great Britain, they would have to take Spain. They would have to do France, Paris themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not I'm not seeing that happen in most games, because the British player is typically stretched and spread thin, and they also need to protect their original territories to get their points.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so again, we are using these points to split up these old dogmas of how to conduct. And in V3 it was simply too easy to just spend 70 IPP in Pacific as US. Then when you're big enough and strong enough, you just go to the Japanese islands, take
Right.
out any fleet, blockade Tokyo, and then
Yeah,
perhaps take a
it was
swing
very
at the capital.
unsatisfying because you'd have 25 light cruisers, so now the game is going to change and there's going to be a much more it'll be I bet there'll be a lot more heavy battleships produced in V4.
Uh,
So I'm excited about that.
a lot more capital ships. And
Hmm.
the way that we doubled the value for the heavy ones is that especially US is able to late game actually really go after that victory point and excel and do a lot of heavy ships
Hmm.
to get a lot of uh, points for the
For the
race
big
with
blue
Japan.
fleet, the big blue
Yeah.
fleet. Yeah, right. Neat. Okay, so let's talk about Italy. There are two Italian victory points. The first one's kind of pretty easy to get. That's the one for Africa. And you have a smallish reward. You can either get a major port or an air base. And I like that because Italy's going to have to be cagey and think of some clever strategies. And so they might, it might come forth that people think of some interesting places to put a major port. Um, or maybe they want to have a particular major port in a particular sea zone that only has a minor port and they can't get their ships into port. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that one plays out. And I think that'll be one that's commonly achieved. But the second one, Imperio, what is that? Imperio Italiano. Oh my goodness, that one seems really hard because I thought at first that Germany would capture Greece, but no, it has to be the Italians.
Yeah.
Um, and but boy, the payoff for that is one that I would be extremely excited about because you have this eternally resurrecting air transport and seaplane, and every time it gets shot down, you can just bring it back to life. Particularly a seaplane. Every turn, I'm finding something for that seaplane to hit, and there's tremendous opportunity for synergy there. If you get the advanced ASW, it would be the most amazing sub hunter in the Med. If you had long range aircraft, who knows how far it can reach. And one thing that I really like about that strategic objective is the Italian seaplanes were actually really good. I mean, they had some excellent aircraft, and I don't think they get the respect for that because their tanks, maybe weren't the best. So, sorry to go off for a
Well,
second.
you can argue that in general, Italy doesn't get much, if any, respect in any World War II war game, right? So, but actually, this is a tough one to get, um, but it's a very important one for the game to have, because in V3, Malta was totally ignored.
Right.
Uh, Greece, I mean, it was just who wanted to go to Greece. It was waste of time. But the Italians in the war, Mussolini, they really wanted that area, especially Greece. Um, so again, we motivate players, and I can actually, we've seen that the Italians are it's extremely stressful to play Italy because they really want to close Abyssinia down quickly. And then what? Then they need to do something about the British, but they also have this pretty tough um, objective,
Objective.
and it takes quite a lot of turns to secure Greece, Crete, Malta, Cyprus, and even with the import stuff, and you can go import in Malta. Uh, we've seen many playtests where the Italian fleet is then immediately suffering a port attack, and the transports are wiped out, and then they have to rebuild. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
It
So
sounds
it's both
horrifying.
historical. We need to put they need to be stressed because if they don't get the point, then Italy is not participating much in the grand scheme of the Axis winning points. So
Right. Okay, let's transition to the Allies. Um, the British have a couple points. The first one is the Africa. So if they get that one, then they get an air base, which is a similar thing to Italy. But do you have any hints on us about what's a good place for Britain to build that air base in Africa? That's the one that you have to get the railroad connected all the way up, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, if I were playing the Allies, I would want to have one in next to the Suez Canal, what's called Lower Egypt in V4. You might, this is perhaps a good time to ask why railroad? I mean, why? What's that? What's the purpose of?
That's exactly what I thought. All these other
Yeah,
ones, I was like, oh yeah, Italy wanted to take Greece, but I didn't
yeah.
know that it was a grand
So
scheme
so
to build a
the,
railroad.
and this is actually where we took some liberties and say, well, we want objectives that are not just conquering whatever land zones. We also want something else in the game, technology, railroad, something to spice things up a bit. So it's not just global domination with a twist. And the cool thing about this one is that it's easy to get, um, but it's also easy to take away because railroad are easily bombed.
Ah,
So you actually need to clear out a lot of land zones, because you can't have fighters in all these land zones. And now you're getting into conflict with the Italians because they have Abyssinia, perhaps. So now what? So now you have some sub-Saharan conflict going on, which, let's be honest, in V3 most likely never happened.
right.
So it's a cool little one. It's easy to get. It's also easy to lose later on. The air base is nice. and you get some extra rail capacity as well. So you can actually build in Cape Town and send up to Egypt for defending that one. So perhaps you don't need to build a minor factory in Africa anyway.
Hmm.
So it's yeah, it's a cool little objective.
The next one I really like, the sun never sets. Um, it's an interesting strategic objective in that in the early game you're going to have it during the time of peace in the build up, and it provides an extra strategic naval move, which in the beginning of the game as the Commonwealth you want every strategic naval move you can get. At least that's the way I play. I'm using every turn. I'm using maximum strategic naval movement to try to move stuff around. Then you're going to be at war, and it's not going to be too long before you lose something. I think probably this makes British Malaya a more active target than I've seen in V3. A lot of times in V3, it really gets beefed up, and people just leave it alone and say it's not worth it. But taking British Malaya then will take away that victory point from the British, uh, shut down their strategic naval movement. And then at the end of the game, if you can restore that as the Commonwealth, if you can get back whatever was taken, then it's worth 2 victory points. So that's quite significant. Interesting where most of the other ones you're either playing for the victory point or you're playing for the bonus primarily. This one's kind of has the early life of the bonus, late life as the victory point.
Yeah, yeah, precisely. So it's an important one to get for the British, but it's going to be tough because there's a lot of land zones that they have to defend, and so they will probably lose one or two, and then hopefully be able to take them back if they want to win.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's also a race against time and the variable ending. Are they
Right.
gonna be able to do a counter late game?
Let's talk about the French victory point or strategic objective, which is worth 2 victory points, a world power. So this one is really tough. It seems very tough for France to make use of this in the early part of the game. It is possible if Germany declares war or if they go to war and they haven't fallen right away. Perhaps that happens in version 4, but it seems like most of the time in V3, France falls the turn that Germany declares war, and so they wouldn't get to collect that free French Foreign Legion bonus that they get if they're at war with a major power, and France is a major power. So at the end of the game, though, the 2 victory points, that is huge, and that really makes Paris become quite important. So it seems like that was your intention: is let's get the liberation of Paris back up to a higher priority. We'll lower down the overall number of strategic objectives, so each one's more important, and we'll make Paris worth 2. Plus, it's a victory city. I mean, that's the thing I came away from. I'm like, Paris must be liberated, or if I'm Germany, Paris must not be liberated. So
Yeah,
it's so great. I love what you've done. That in Russia, it's very important to take three, to be fighting over those 3 cities, and hold on to Paris.
yeah,
Anyway.
yeah, precisely. So Paris is the Lebensraum of the West,
Hmm.
and I've seen too many games where the Allies didn't bother going into Europe because it was not worth it.
Hmm.
And now with 2 points on the line, they have to take a stab at it. Otherwise, they will need a lot of the other points
Hmm.
to be able to win. And it's a tough one because the Germans have their factories nearby,
Right.
but with the new strategic bombing rules, we have seen that the Allies actually take out the rail in Alsace-Lorraine and then drop. So they cut the railroad into Paris away. So the Germans, they can't reinforce Paris. And that actually gives them the option of putting enough boots on the ground to take it.
Hmm.
So it's there are several components here that is working,
It's just
but
huge because it's really a 4 point swing. Not only do you get 3 victory points, two for the French objective and one for the victory city, but you take away Germany's point that they're getting for Paris. So you've really you've really put pressure to make Paris a huge fight, as it should be. I mean,
yeah,
it's a huge morale blow to take or lose. So loved that one. Okay, KMT, KMT and CCP have the same goal, which is to evolve. It's worth a point. Basically, evolving to a major power is the reward. You do get a major factory in a city or a minor factory outside a city, but I would imagine it's still in version 4 just as tough to evolve to a major power, or is it something that does happen fairly often?
it happens in a lot of games unless Japan goes massively into China.
Mm,
Then some one of the factions typically evolve, um, and so now that they get a factory as a bonus, they're actually able to do something as a major power. In V3, if they evolved, the game would typically end the next turn. So who cared anyway? But
right.
now they get a major factory if they go for the city zone. And to let's just perhaps touch upon this a bit. Why major in city and minor is? And the thing is, the cities they're on the coast, so you can be cocky and put it in the city, but then you're open yourself to counterattacks from Japan, and they really want to take that away. Or you can play it safe and put a minor in Tibet or something someplace that is easy to defend.
Hmm.
So that's the reason why we have the two factories.
My thought was that the CCP probably is the one that most frequently gets a minor factory not on the coast, and the KMT is the one that most often is gutsy enough to get a factory on the coast, just depending on what the naval uh, flux of power is between Japan and the Allies. So,
I would say that China in general are much more interesting in V4 due to the tweaks and the new map and all the other stuff that we made. Um, so it's I think the three alliance exam, so to speak, is in China, and I think that in V4 that really works well.
that's
Um,
interesting. You're right, because in Spain you've got the fascists versus communists, and in Africa you've got the fascists versus democracy. But it's China's the only one of those areas that's got all three of them.
yeah,
Uh, yeah,
and
that's very
that's also
interesting.
why it's perhaps the most difficult thing to get right because going from 2 to 3 is magnitude much more difficult. So
Hmm. Yeah. Okay, let's transition to USA.
yeah,
We already kind of talked about the Big Blue Fleet, but I really love that with Kido Butai, all you need is to have more. The Japanese just need more capital ships than the Allies, but to get to Big Blue Fleet, the Americans need twice as many capital ships. And you were pointing out to me, it's not the Commonwealth; they're not involved in the math. It's just America, because otherwise that Britain could bring over a bunch of capital ships and throw the calculus off. So it's just America has to have twice as many capital ships as the Japanese to hit the Big Blue Fleet. And what's interesting about having those two different levels is that the Americans might be trying just to get equal or one more than Japan to take away their bonus for building more capital ships. And then as they get closer and closer to hitting the 2 times level, the Japanese are desperately trying to how can we kill one capital ship or build one more capital ship to prevent them from getting that bonus, because then the Big Blue Fleet is gonna let them build even more
yeah,
capital ships or any kind of ships. So
yeah. It's a fun dilemma because I mean the US they also have some capital ships on the East Coast. so they could bring them to the Pacific for this calculus. But then if they don't have any capital ships in the Atlantic, well, that doesn't actually help the European theater. But it's an interesting dilemma because neither nation, neither Japan or US actually has money to go for this arms race because Japan is typically stretched in China, or they need to buy more airplanes, and the US, well, they need to really for the one thing is they need to somehow support Operation Overlord in Europe. But another thing is that now that their ships are in port and they're very vulnerable to Pearl Harbor, they actually need to build and fortify the positions. They need to fortify Hawaii, and they can fortify and build in the offshore land zones in V4. They couldn't do that in V3 in the beginning of the
Right.
game. They also want more factories, and they're incredibly stretched for cash. And they also want lend-lease, right?
Right.
Everyone is screaming, we want lend-lease. They need to support everyone, but they're totally stretched for cash themselves. So it's a lot of stress to be the bank of democracy. A lot of
Sounds
excitement.
fantastic. Looking forward to
So
it.
yeah,
Okay, triumph of capitalism. Oh, I love this strategic objective because this is exactly what America needs at the end of the game when they've got twice as much. The U.S. plus Great Britain have twice as much income-wise because it allows them to essentially teleport a unit right into England. And so at the end of the game, you might be able to teleport a strategic bomber that could hit the Alsace-Lorraine rail that you were talking about. So I'm sure that this one, yes, it's nice as far as the victory point, but I bet there's some tastiness that happens as far as the bonus, getting an extra unit in there that's built directly in England. So, any comments
yeah,
about
it,
that?
it, it saves a turn or two of transportation. The reason we have this is actually we want the allies to look really closely as Russian expansion in the Middle East or in Scandinavia, because if Russia is left to take Middle East or Scandinavia, the allies will not get this point. So, but also the allies, they need Russia to survive because Barbarossa is coming. So it's one of these. We need to have more hatred going on between the alliances, and
You're just a troublemaker. You're intentionally stirring up trouble. That's
yes,
that's why you designed
I am
this.
a troublemaker. That's for sure.
Yes.
So this it's also much easier for the allies to declare war on Russia in E4. So we want this this well, I
Tension.
don't know, tension. Yeah, we want this tension to really. So I've seen we talked about that. Well, the Axis and Russia makes an unholy alliance, and we don't want that. We don't want the Allies and Russia to make an alliance either. We
Mm.
want everyone to hate each other.
Mm-hmm.
So this point is, and it could be that um, during the game we've seen mid game suddenly the Allies have double
Right.
because also perhaps if Britain is doing okay, then they're reaching the 100 plus IPP, and so now they can build in London.
Right.
And they lose the point again because Russia attacks and is aggressive. So then, how is the score when we get to the variable ending? Because often it's a couple of points that is separating winning from second place.
So that
So this
that
is one of
that
these.
double was pretty amazing that it worked out to have twice as much. It turned out that that was right in the sweet
Yes,
spot.
yeah,
That's
that
amazing.
is the sweet spot, and that's also why we don't count FEC or NSAC because
Mm-hmm.
then it would be,
Too much.
yeah,
Gotcha. Oh, that's fascinating. Okay. There were two technological superiorities. Now there's American technological superiority and the Soviet technological superiority. so we can know which one we're talking about. I think the American technological superiority is a lot tougher than the American technological superiority, and I don't know if it's worth it to go for the American technological superiority because it seems like tech is a lot more precious. Just like you went down on the strategic objectives, it seems like you've decreased the amount of tech in the game through making it hard for countries to initiate tech right from the get go. They have to kind of, at least for Russia and America, they have to earn the right. They have to gain enough income to start generating tech, which makes me think that America isn't going to end the game with every tech. They're researching everything, even techs they don't care about. Um, and so if you choose this path, these are some tough 9+ techs to develop. Do players often fail? Do American players often fail to develop this? Or is it just this, like it is in V3 and they're going to develop every single tech?
Well, I think tech in general, we can do a whole separate talk about that. The reason that these technological points are still in the game is again to mix things up a bit, so it's not just about conquest. Um, Due to the way technology is in V4, it is a lot harder for the American player to go for this one. Um, the question is, can they afford not to? I mean, that's 1 point out, 1 point
Mm-hmm.
away.
Right.
So they have to, if they
Tough
ignore this
choice.
one, they have to really get some of the others, or eliminate the other alliances from getting their points.
It's kind of a cocky move so early in the game to say, yeah, I'm not going to need to get that victory
Yeah,
point because this is not one that you can decide at turn 15. You know what? I really think I need to get that victory
yeah,
point. That ship has sailed.
yeah.
Um,
So it's a way of again giving options to players. Um, I mean, some of these technologies the US would want anyway. So um, yeah, but it's a tough one for sure.
the last American one is Sphere of Influence, which is about holding all your originally possessed territories, and then you get a strategic naval movement. That seems like a harder one, not definitely not impossible, but one of the easier ones for Japan to foil them in some place. Uh, to get every single one back. Um, and I don't know that America needs to have the strategic naval movement. How valuable do you think this one is?
Well, I don't want the entire American fleet in Europe, so I want them to be in Pacific as well, and they need to do that. Otherwise, this one is for surely not
Ah,
available because it's easy.
right.
It's easy to take away,
Yeah,
and if the Japanese take Guam and put a lot of dudes there, the Americans need to step up.
right.
So it's also incredibly stressful to be the U.S. player.
Now let's go move on to the CCP. We already talked about them evolving to a major power, just like the KMT. Um, they also have spread the revolution, which it's interesting that KMT doesn't have the ability to get an extra victory point, but CCP does have the ability to get an extra victory point. So they would go down into Southeast Asia, and if they do, then they're going to get 2 infantry and a minor factory in one of those zones. Any comment about that particular strategic objective?
It's a tough one, that's for sure. Um, the reason that it's there is that if the Comintern have 10 points, it makes sense to give the CCP two, and also it gives them something um, to go after becoming a major power. If you look at the other points, and you are KMT and you evolve, what you will do is you will immediately go after Manchukuo, because there's a point there for both Japan and for Russia. So you're actually able to take
Mm,
away 1 point
nice.
from the alliance that has Manchukuo. And you could also do other stuff to irritate Japan. But for CCP, if CCP evolves to a major power, Russia would typically have Manchukuo anyway. So what would CCP do? But they have something to do in the south, and
Right.
it's not an easy one to get. So they have to again move fast to do it. So yeah, so that's the again we want to spread the action out, still in a historical context.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the reason why we have the CCP ones in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, that was interesting. I didn't think about that, but that absolutely makes sense. That you want to pull those forces down into that area, and get that area active. Okay, the next is we're going to move into Russia. The last one, Pacific expansion. So that's where you have to get the Kuril Islands and then all of Manchukuo. That seems really tough for Russia to do. Is that true, or do you see that happen?
It's a tough one. I mean, Manchukuo is easy, but the
Right.
Kurils
That's the
is
tough one.
tough as nails, right? And it's interesting because when I'm playing Comintern and when I speak to other players who play, they really they have this love-hate relationship with Kurils because man, it's tough. But they on the V4 map they actually have a minor shipyard in Primorsky Krai, so they are able to build ships on that side. Um, but the interesting thing here is also that for the American player, they're also able to take Kuril Islands from the Japanese. And then what? What does Russia do then? So it's interesting, and there are multiple ways of taking an island as the Kurils. I mean, it's a narrow crossing from Russia,
Right.
and you have airborne
Airborne.
assaults, you have
Right.
amphibious,
What I definitely
and
see is that the version 3 strategy with Russia where you make yourself impervious to a DOW from the allies is not going to fly. Like
no,
you are going to go to war. It is going to happen. You just need to be prepared for it, because I don't think you can get enough of your strategic objectives if you stay within the boundaries. Later on we'll talk about, or we could just talk about Helsinki. The Winter War. You're not going to be able to take Helsinki without making yourself vulnerable to an Allied declaration of war. In version 3, you could attack any country that was adjacent to
yeah,
you, but now you can only take territory, the neutral territories that are adjacent to you. So you can go one step into Finland, but you can't go all the way to Helsinki, which I guess now is 3 steps into Finland. So,
yeah.
but you can't leave that many victory points on the table. You're, like you were saying before, you're probably not going to prevail in the Spanish Civil War, and that means you're going to have to get aggressive with Helsinki. I can see it being a lot easier to take Helsinki than Kuril Islands. That I really worry about Spanish Civil War and Kuril Islands. So it seems like two that are very hard to get, you know. So, but on the
I don't expect the Comintern and the Allied player to be able to drive home together from a weekend of
right.
Second World War because they're not going to like each other. They
Where it's funny. So at first everyone will hate the Axis players, but then at
yeah,
the end they'll be like, "Hey, I understand why you hated the other guys so
yeah,
much."
yeah.
That's funny. Oh, that's great. That's good. Okay, next we have Soviet technological supremacy, and this one is definitely worth it to me. Like I mean, I going back, I love Helsinki that you get to pick two of the three technologies to give yourself an advanced stage. But the Soviet technological supremacy, I think those are both reasonable. You have totally fixed strategic rockets and made them worthwhile. So get a jet, get a strategic rocket, and develop those techs. I think it's worth it to get one victory point. So that's one that I would definitely do. That's a high priority for me if I'm playing Russia.
It is worthwhile getting that's for sure. But when we get to the tech talk, we will talk about the Soviets are under a lot of pressure,
Yeah,
technologically wise.
right. Because they don't even get to start
Um,
rolling till late in the game.
they get to
Right.
roll late, and the way that we design the techs is that now Russia needs more techs.
Ah,
So
right. Because you got the T-34s. You definitely want your advanced artillery. You want everything. You
yeah,
you you want
you
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 want
want more tech.
logistics.
So now it's
Right.
and I mean, who knows? Perhaps your factories are also being bombed.
Right.
I would probably go for that as Germany.
Mm-hmm.
It's yeah, it's worthwhile getting. And if
Mm-hmm.
you lost Spain, you're not going to get Kuril Islands. Oh, now what? Your
Right.
options are diminishing. So you need. So
You need to
yeah,
pick a strategy.
yeah.
The next one is propaganda war, and this is the most interesting one because the bonus is kind of the wartime income. Is that how you can contemplate the bonus for propaganda war, which is the cities holding all the Soviet cities?
So Germany gets 2 points for Barbarossa, plus the potential of victory cities in Russia. Uh, but we also want Russia to really move westwards. Um, and we don't want a Russian player who lost 3 cities winning in some
Mm-hmm.
weird scenario. So they also have a point here. And the reason that they don't get a bonus is because that they have this in the beginning of the game. They have all cities, landstones in the beginning of the game. So if we gave them a bonus, um, that would simply be too powerful. And they already get a wartime bonus for the cities, so that's why it doesn't have a bonus on its own.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, I could give it a ridiculous bonus. I could throw in but so we just went with nothing.
Yeah, an
So
extra strategic naval movement.
yeah, yeah. Let's not go there. If
Okay,
you build ships as a Soviet player, um, I'm not sure it's a winning strategy.
totally makes sense. Speaking of
Depending on
ships,
if you want to go for the Kurils with the naval,
true.
that could be, but otherwise, I haven't seen. Um, no, so
Well, the other thing is this access to the Mediterranean victory objective, where you have to take Istanbul. This seems like another one. I think it's going to be maybe easier than winning the Spanish Civil War, but very, very difficult and require some sort of tremendous focus. I don't know if you go in from Transcaucasia and battle your way all the way across the peninsula, or if you do an airborne assault, maybe with a transport, or maybe you come in from Bulgaria. I'm not sure. So, what have you
yeah,
seen?
that's this one is incredibly interesting. We've seen a lot of crazy stuff happen during playtests. Uh, we've seen if you go in from the Caucasus,
Anatolia.
um, you have three. The way that the new map for Turkey, there are more land zones, and so they're actually able to receive a lot of lend lease into Istanbul from both the Axis and the Allies, so that when
Mm.
you get to Istanbul, perhaps they have 4 anti-aircraft artillery waiting. So we've actually seen in places that we have actually stopped the Russian player from going into Istanbul because now they have to reinforce, but they couldn't do that because Germany was going the other way around the Black Sea. Um, but it's also very interesting for Germany to go into Istanbul now because one is it's a path to the Middle East, but also they're able to fortify it. Um, Romania also has a minor shipyard now, so the Axis player also have some more options here. Um,
Is that minor shipyard in Bessarabia or central Romania?
Central Romania.
Okay. Sorry to
but
interrupt.
they can't go in port unless they build a major port. So, but yeah.
But they could
So
produce
that
ships there. So
Turkey is much more interesting, and in most 9 out of 10 playtest games, Turkey is being crossed by either one. So
great,
so it's a
great.
lot
So
more. I mean, in V3, you typically have most
1 out of
games.
10.
Yeah, but now it's typically being bulldozed by one of the alliances. So a lot more action going on there.
Okay, I see. So Germany might go into Turkey, and then later in the war, perhaps Russia pushes back out, and that's a path for them to pick up this victory point.
Yeah, yeah. So it's
Interesting.
yeah. Um,
Well, the
and whenever
last one.
whenever we've seen in playtest these points being taken away again, and then we know we're onto something good here because we get the dynamic going, which is what we want.
Right.
We don't want a game where you get something and then what? Then nothing. Similar to the Chinese Civil War, you evolve to major power. Then what? You continuously have stuff to do all the time, and you don't have enough money to do it. You have too many options of good options to go after,
Right.
and you have this stupid variable ending.
Yes.
A lot of
It's
a lot of
delicious because that's exactly what you want. You want to say, "Oh God, I should have 2 turns ago. I should have built X and sent." You know what I mean?
yeah,
That's a great game when it's something like that that you know if you had made a different decision, there could have been a different outcome. To have many different decisions that have really interesting outcomes, that's a well designed game instead of some of the other games I've worked on where it's like who had the highest economy and it just snowballs. You know what I mean?
yeah,
This is about what did I decide to do? What did I prioritize? What did I work well? Did this synergize well with my ally? It sounds really really good. Just one more strategic objective, which is a European buffer zone. This one to me is the most important one that Russia would love to achieve. Get central Romania, get Warsaw. It's worth 2 points. If you're there, you know you've got all your cities recaptured. So just like when I think about the Allies, they really want to dominate the Pacific navally and get Paris. So they're divided.
yeah,
And the Germans want to hold on to Paris, but they want to get 3 victory cities in Russia if there were big picture things. And Russia would love to see themselves take over Manchuria and take over Warsaw, Central Romania. Those would be like. So I love it that everyone is torn in half. You've
yeah,
taken each one and just divided them. So and even Japan, now that I understand that they can go for Pearl Harbor, or they can go China, or they can go south. They're kind of multiple different options, and it sounds like all of these options are viable. It's not just that you have to pick. This is the scripted path towards victory. You've created a number of branching chains. I'm really really excited about this. Any final thoughts about strategic objectives, Morten?
um, perhaps only that. I mean, playtests have shown that it works incredibly well, um, and I really I look forward to hearing uh, game reports when people start playing this, and if they also experience ever increasing excitement throughout the game, like we've seen in the playtests. Um, so yeah,
A quick thing, Morten, when you said ever increasing excitement, were you saying that as the game gets closer and closer to the ending, the tension and excitement is mounting? Or are you saying the more they played V4, the more excitement they felt?
well, both, but my initial was as the game progresses, they will get a lot more excitement
Mm,
because there is actually a lot of open doors because you can take points away and you can go after your own points, but you also need to stop the other alliances from getting their points, and all this brings out a lot of good dynamic.
Fantastic. Well, it sounds like you've got the most important thing to get right in a game is victory conditions, because that's what determines uh, who how the game's going to end. So it sounds like you've done a really good job. I really appreciate your time talking with us today about this. I think hopefully the next developer's diary will again be with a board gaming bro. And then I hope I get to do the one number 5.
Well, Dick, here's the deal. I'm the best there is, plain and simple. I mean, I wake up in the morning, I piss excellence, and nobody can hang with my stuff. I'm just a big, hairy American winning machine. If you ain't first, you're last.
So thanks so much for staying up late, and appreciate your time.
Thank you.